This is the quote that I learned that helped me with my father's death, and I couldn't understand why it was beating me up.
Steve Harvey, who at 69 years old seems to carry secrets that the mainstream media is terrified to touch. While the world is distracted by his impeccable suits and his charisma on Family, few there exists a suffocating truth behind a smile involving everything from persistent rumors.
So bad. When a man's father dies,
Of a $400 million divorce that threatens to disintegrate his net worth, to disturbing theories about how he truly maintains his influence behind the scenes of Hollywood. We are going to unearth the dark past of when he lived in his Ford Tempo in the 80s and question whether this hunger for success became a dangerous obsession that led to controversial behaviors like the
realizes that the one man who truly wanted him to be better than him is
fateful leaked memo where he demanded that his employees not approach him without prior authorization, creating an aura of almost dictatorial isolation. From cheating scandals that haunt his marriage to Marjorie to the international political connections that placed him under the crosshairs of fierce criticism, what we are about to reveal is not just the story of a comedian, but that of a cold strategist who many say
Your father is the only man
to never return to extreme poverty. This is why your subscription to this channel is absolutely vital, because the YouTube algorithm often tries to silence content that challenges the official narratives of big studios. And by subscribing and leaving your like, you are sending a sovereign signal that the public demands a raw and naked truth, ensuring that this independent journalism remains unstoppable. For those who recognize the strength of this investigation and wish to financially support our search for transparency, the Super Thanks feature is available, and it is what allows us to keep digging where others are afraid to look. But if you cannot help right now, simply comment on which of these facts shocked you the most, because your interaction is our greatest weapon. Stay with us and do not dare leave this video before the end, because the final revelation will prepare about the fate of Harvey's fortune and what he is hiding about his health will leave you absolutely impacted. Theme 1. The trauma of scarcity and the 3 years inside a Ford Tempo. The journey of Steve Harvey is one of the most visceral and dramatic examples of how reality can be relentless before it becomes glorious. And understanding Theme 1 requires us to dive deep into a period of his life that he describes not just as a difficult moment, but as an eternal scar on his psyche. To understand a man who today sports designer suits and unshakable confidence, we must go back to the mid-'80s when Steve made a decision to abandon security of a stable job at an insurance factory to pursue the uncertain dream of stand-up comedy.
I love you, man, but I don't want you to be better than me.
Which many would call madness, was a catalyst for a descent into the abyss of poverty that would last 3 years. Imagine for a moment the sensation of not having a roof over your head. And this is not a metaphor, but the raw reality of Harvey, who transformed his 1976 Ford Tempo into his only property and refuge, living literally within a space of a few square meters where every object had to be strategically positioned so that he could stretch his legs as little as possible to rest between performances that barely paid. The gas bills. Steve tells in his lectures and interviews with a tone of vulnerability that we rarely see in stars of his caliber, that his Ford Tempo was not just a car,
Your father
but a survival capsule
to be
where he kept a portable cooler plugged into the cigarette lighter to store some basic groceries, and where every meal was a victory over persistent hunger. The most degrading and humanly challenging aspect of this phase was personal hygiene, because without access to his own shower, he had to develop a cleaning routine in public restrooms of gas stations and hotels, often sneaking into pool areas to wash quickly and discreetly before being kicked out, and this constant feeling of being an intruder in the world of normals created in him a shield of resilience, but also a deep fear of never being accepted. During
And when
these
he
3
dies,
years, there
you
were
realize
moments
it.
when
And
despair
what
hit
the
so
part that
hard
fucked me,
that Steve cried alone in the driver's seat, questioning his own sanity and the validity of his faith, because he felt he had failed not only himself, but his family, as this period coincided with the collapse of his first marriage due to financial instability and his constant absence in the pursuit of fame. However, it's fascinating to observe how this trauma of scarcity became the fuel for his current work ethic. Because for Steve Harvey, every minute of work is an insurance policy against the possibility of returning to that car, and this explains why he became a workaholic, who accumulates roles as a radio host, actor, author, and game show host simultaneously. Because in his mind, the danger of losing everything is always lurking just around the next corner. In his most intimate statements, he reveals that even today, when he enters his multi-million-dollar mansions or private jets, he can smell the old upholstery of the Ford Tempo and perfectly remembers the sound of the rain hitting the metal roof of the car while he tried to sleep hungry. And this constant memory is what makes him so connected to the audience facing financial difficulties, because he does not speak from a position of inherited privilege, but as someone who literally crawled out of the pavement. This experience of living on the margins of society gave him a unique perspective on human dignity and how success can be volatile, which led him to develop a mentality of financial sovereignty, where he seeks to be the owner of every project he is involved in, to never again depend on someone else's permission to put food on the table. The psychological impact of having lived as a homeless person is so vast that it shaped even his communication style, which is direct, practical, and often focused on the survival of the fittest and the power of manifestation through faith, because he firmly believes that if it were not for spiritual intervention and his own unshakable persistence, he would have died in that car as just another Hollywood statistic. Therefore, Theme 1 is not just a nice little overcoming story for a resume, but the foundation of the entire Harvey empire, because it explains his aggressiveness in business, his extreme protection regarding his image, and his constant need to validate his wealth through status symbols like his iconic cigars, and luxury cars which function as antidotes to the years of invisibility and absolute deprivation. Steve often says that God doesn't give you what you want, but what you're prepared to receive, and he feels that the 3 years in the Ford Tempo with elite training so that he could bear the weight of global fame without breaking. And although he today lives surrounded by opulence, the truth is that the young Steve Harvey who washed his face in hotel sinks still lives inside him, guiding every decision and ensuring that he never forgets the price of freedom and the value of a firm roof over his head, transforming the pain of scarcity into the greatest source of strength an artist has ever demonstrated in the modern history of entertainment. Steve Harvey's personal life has often mirrored the high-stakes drama of a soap opera, proving that while he may be the king of giving relationship advice, his own journey through love has been a hard and rocky path defined by public scandals and massive legal settlements. To understand the man behind the act like a lady, think like a man brand, we must deconstruct the sovereign mess of his 3 marriages, beginning with his first union to Marsha Harvey, which collapsed just as his career was beginning to take flight. The hard truth of this first chapter is that as Steve pursued his unstoppable dream of fame, he reportedly unclenched from his responsibilities as a father and husband, leading to a long-term estrangement from his twin daughters that took years of hard work to reconcile. However, the true nightmare and the most rigged period of his romantic life was his second marriage to Mary Shackelford, a relationship that ended in 2005 but continued to haunt him to the dark side of Hollywood for over a decade. The transcript of their fallout reveals a sovereign war of words where Mary took to the internet to accuse Steve of serial infidelity, claiming he began his relationship with his current wife, Marjorie, while they were still married, a claim Steve has unstoppable denied with fierce legal strength. This nightmare reached a breaking point when Mary was actually jailed for contempt of court after Hard violating a gag order, proving that in the world of Harvey, the rig for privacy is absolute. Then comes the sovereign arrival of Marjorie Bridges in 2007, the woman who Steve claims unclench him for his past demons. Yet her presence as Hard triggered a new wave of nightmare headlines in recent years. In late 2023 and throughout 2024, the media giants were rigged with rumors of a $400 million divorce and allegations of Marjorie's hard betrayal with a bodyguard, a narrative that Steve had to sovereignly shut down at a business gala by stating he was sick of the lies. The untold story of his love life is a hard power dynamic within a Harvey household, where his unstoppable blended a family of 7 children, often rigging his public image to appear as the perfect patriarch, while the dark side of Hollywood whispers about the hard, ironclad prenuptial agreements and the sovereign control Marjorie supposedly exerts over the empire. Steve's own hard declarations and interviews reveal a man who views marriage as a rigged game where the man must be the sovereign provider. Yet his history of unclenched loyalty and high-priced exits tells the story of a man who has had a Hard pay for every lesson he learned about love. Today, as he stands at 69, the verdict on his love life remains a hard mixture of public devotion and sovereign damage control, proving that even the most unstoppable relationship expert has had to survive his own nightmare of broken hearts and rigged headlines to find the strength to keep his family together. Theme 3. The dictatorial memo, the hard isolation, and the sovereign demand for privacy. In this third hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the moment the sovereign mask of the friendly neighbor slipped to reveal a hard and uncompromising corporate ruler. The hard truth of Steve Harvey's internal culture was exposed in 2017 when a leaked internal memo sent to his staff during the final season of his Chicago-based talk show rigged the media into a frenzy of criticism. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. Steve didn't just want privacy. He demanded a sovereign buffer zone that unclench him from any casual human interaction with the very people who build his unstoppable success. The transcript of that memo revealed a hard and chilling set of rules, including instructions like, do not come to my dressing room unless invited, do not open my dressing room door, and do not approach me in the makeup chair. This sovereign decree sent shockwaves to the media giants, who began to view the nightmare of his ego as unstoppable. The hard reality behind this rigged isolation is a man who is hard, walled himself off from the world he claims to represent. In the memo, Steve Unstoppable doubled down, stating, my security team will stop everyone from standing in the hallway. Do not wait in any hallway to speak to me. He justified this hard behavior by claiming his life had become a nightmare of being ambushed by people asking for favors or sovereign minutes of his time. While the dark side of Hollywood viewed this as a hard case of celebrity arrogance, Steve's sovereign defense was that he was simply unclenching himself from a mental drain of being an unstoppable problem solver for everyone else. He famously told the press, I'm a human being, I just want a little space. But a hard and cold tone of the email suggested a sovereign king who had grown weary of his subjects. The untold story of Theme 3 involves the unstoppable fallout of this hard management style. We are deconstructing how this rigged the atmosphere on set into one of nightmare anxiety. The transcript of staff reactions reveals that many felt unclenched from their passion for the show, feeling like sovereign ghosts in a machine with a hard leader was untouchable. This sovereign distance is a Hollywood secret that explains a hard shift in Steve's career move to Los Angeles and later his unstoppable expansion into the Middle East, where he can maintain an even more rigged and private sovereign lifestyle far from the nightmare of American tabloid scrutiny. The verdict of this chapter is that the dictatorial memo rig was the ultimate sovereign statement. By hard, drawing a line in the sand, Steve Harvey told the media giants that his strength was unstoppable, but only on his own hard terms. He proved he could unclench himself from the expectations of being approachable, showing the world that in a sovereign empire, he is the only one who decides who is allowed to enter his space. In this four hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the unstoppable moment that nearly unclenched Steve Harvey from his global sovereign status. While the media giant expected a flawless 2015 Miss Universe pageant, the hard truth of that night in Las Vegas was a nightmare of epic proportions. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. The mistake that saw Ariadna Gutierrez a Columbia crown instead of the actual winner, Pia Wurtzbach of the Philippines, wasn't just a simple slip of the tongue. It was a hard and rigged moment of human error that triggered a global nightmare of death threats and diplomatic tension. The hard reality behind the rigged mistake was the immediate aftermath. The transcript of Steve's private reflections reveals a sovereign leader in total freefall. He has hard admitted that after he walked off stage, the nightmare began instantly. He was unstoppable in his attempt to fix it, returning to the stage to hard take the blame. But the dark side of Hollywood had already turned him into a global meme. The transcript reveals that for months, he couldn't leave his sovereign home without heavy security because of hard and credible death threats from fans who felt their national pride had been unclenched by his error. He famously said, "I was in a dark place. People were following my kids to school. It was a hard, unstoppable nightmare." The untold story of theme involves the unstoppable recovery rig. We are deconstructing how Steve Hard pivoted the disaster into a sovereign victory. While the media giants thought he was unclenched from the industry, Steve rigged the situation by becoming the face of owning your mistakes. The transcript reveals that he hard renegotiated his contract with the pageant, proving his strength by returning year after year, transforming the nightmare into a sovereign running joke that actually increased his market value. This hard resilience showed the dark side of Hollywood that even a nightmare gaffe couldn't stop his sovereign climb. The verdict of this chapter is that the Miss Universe rig was the ultimate test of Steve's strength. By hard standing in the fire of global humiliation, he told the media giants that he was unstoppable. He proved he could unclench himself from a career-ending nightmare and rig a future where he was more famous than ever before, showing that a sovereign leader is defined by how they hard handle fall. In this fifth hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the unstoppable and often polarizing sovereign worldviews of Steve Harvey. While the media giant prefer their hosts to stay neutral and unclenched from controversy, the hard truth revealed in decades of Harvey's interviews is a man who rigs his public image around a hard and uncompromising religious conviction. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. Steve Harvey doesn't just practice faith, he uses it as a sovereign weapon to categorize the world, often leading to nightmare clashes with those who don't share his hard, traditionalist values. The hard reality of the atheist strike remains one of his most rigged public moments. The transcript of his appearance on the Tyra Banks show reveals a sovereign declaration that sent shockwaves through the dark side of Hollywood. When discussing dating, Steve Hard asserted that he has no use for atheists, famously stating that they have no moral barometer and asking, "If you don't believe in God, where's your moral barometer? To me, you're an idiot." This unstoppable stance unclenched a massive backlash from secular groups, yet Steve sovereignly refused to back down. Hard, doubling down on his belief that a man without a rigged connection to the divine is a nightmare to be avoided. The untold story of Theme 5 involved the unstoppable 90-day rule and a sovereign dating rig. We are deconstructing how Steve Hard translated his faith into a billion-dollar relationship empire. The transcript of his book, Act Like a Lady. Think Like a Man reveals a hard and often criticized rig, where he tells women to unclench their benefits for 90 days to hard test a man's sovereign intent. While critics called it hard and outdated nightmare advice, Steve sovereignly maintains that his strength comes from these unstoppable traditional gender roles, rigging his advice to suggest that men are inherently hard hunters who only respect what they have to unstoppable work for. The verdict of this chapter is that the moral barometer rig is the sovereign core of Steve's brand. By Hard, alienating those who disagree, he told the media giants that his strength is unstoppable. He has proven that with enough strength and a sovereign vision, you can hard rewrite your ending, leaving the dark side of Hollywood behind to build a kingdom where you are the only one who holds a rigged microphone. In this final hard conclusion to our investigation, we deconstruct the true cost of the Harvey rig. At 69, the hard truth is that Steve Harvey has successfully unclenched himself from the dark side of Hollywood to build a global empire that is truly unstoppable. We have uncovered the final Hollywood secret. His strength didn't come from the stage or the cameras, but from the sovereign resilience he forged while living in that Ford tempo decades ago. He has rigged his own destiny, proving that even a nightmare past cannot stop a sovereign vision. The verdict is clear. Steve Harvey is the ultimate survivor of the industry's hard reality. He has unclenched the grip of poverty and rigged a life of absolute influence. He is the sovereign king of his own narrative, and at 69, he is just getting started. The investigation continues with you. As we close this hard chapter, remember, the only way to unclench the truth from the media giants is to stay informed. If this investigation gave you the strength to see the sovereign truth behind the rigged world of Steve Harvey, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Your unstoppable support is what tells the YouTube algorithm that this independent journalism is vital. Subscription is the only way to ensure these hard truths aren't silenced by the nightmare of corporate censorship. I want to hear from you. What part of Steve's journey shocked you the most? Was it the hard isolation of the memo, or his sovereign move to the Middle East? Drop a comment below. And now, do not leave yet. You must watch the video appearing on your screen right now. I promise you that investigation is even more hard, more interesting, and more passionate than this one. It will unclench secrets you never thought possible. Click it now and keep the sovereign journey alive. By Hard, alienating those who disagree, he told the media giants that his strength is